Ladies and gentlemen, I am Redfish.
I'm Rebo Hustle.
And I'm Mustang.
And we are coming to you from Off the Dome Studios here at Myrtle Ridge Manor. We are the Off the Dome Sports Podcast crew, coming at you with a new series we're starting for the next month called Mock Draft Monday, where every Monday up until the drafts we'll be putting out a mock draft. So the way we're going to do it is I'll start us off. I'll go with the number 1 pick, and then we'll go down the line to number 2, number 3, come back to me, and then just keep on going through the entire first round. Just some rules and standards for the draft. We're going to be doing what we would do, not necessarily what we think will happen in real life. We're not doing a prediction-based mock draft. We're doing, we are the GM in the room, who are we taking? And then we'll just give a quick synopsis of maybe why we'll pick that player based on current roster construction, who we think that player can be, that type of stuff. Before we keep going, obviously, keep on watching us on YouTube. If this is your first time watching, subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. You can also listen to us on Spotify for the full-length podcast that we put out. And then also check out the No Network, Kneaux, the only way to spell it. Check out the No Network on any social media you have. They're on everything and putting out tons of great content. I know the boys just did an interview today that should be posted pretty soon. I'll be doing one later this week. So if you're a big Louisiana sports fan, make sure to check out Off the Dome. Make sure to check out the No, because new content is coming every single day. With that being said, let's kick off Mock Draft Monday with the first overall pick, Chicago Bears. This is the most chalk pick of all time, Caleb Williams. Got rid of Justin Fields. They have the number 1 pick from Carolina. And Caleb Williams is the number 1 prospect, has been since the 23 draft ended. So he'll end up in a Bears uniform without a doubt.
Yeah, I feel like over the past few years, they've had a standout guy who everyone knows was going to go first overall. But, around this time is when they start to throw in these storylines or these opinions that maybe someone else could take his spot. Personally, I think it's to get the odds up for betting purposes.
Yeah, could be.
But who am I but a man?
But a man.
Who bets?
But a man. A man who bets.
A betting man.
A betting man. Rebo Hustle, do you have the second overall pick?
Yeah, if this pick goes the way I want it to, I will be fully bought into the Commanders this year. And that'll be that'll be Jaden Daniels, quarterback LSU. We know what he can do. We talked about him for literally since this podcast even started. And I think, and supposedly in media, the story is that the Commanders are leaning more towards JD5 than they are Drake May. So I hope that it does come true.
Yeah. As LSU fans, people who live 15, 20 minutes from campus, we know what Jaden Daniels can do. You are a certified Jaden Daniels hater prior to this past season, but you turned around quickly once you saw that he was not only a Heisman candidate, but ended up winning it. He had the most growth out of any player in this draft. Caleb Williams had a down year for his standards. Drake May, down year for his standards. Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of replicated what he had done. But you look at Jaden Daniels, and he went from a 17-3 to a 40-4 as far as touchdown-interception ratio. Greatest rushing quarterback LSU's ever seen, and then got it done through the air, too. So I like Jaden Daniels to the Manders.
Yeah, he's one of those players that, we've seen from the lows of last year to the highs of this year, just a completely different animal coming out the locker room this year. I mean, you could tell he worked on his passing progression, staying in the pocket for longer, which was, Reese's main issue with him last year. So very glad to see that he worked on that. And, I agree. I do think the Commanders will take him, especially with bringing in Cliff Kingsbury, who we saw had success with Kyler Murray. Personally, I think JD is going to be a lot better than Kyler Murray.
Yep.
But that's still to come.
Who are you picking at 3?
At 3, we did work out a trade.
Ooh, hello.
I do think that Minnesota didn't just go get these picks for no reason. I do think that they're going to work up. And I think once Jaden Daniels goes, that's when they're going to pull the trigger. That's when they're going to jump up and get Drake May.
Yeah, there's no reason to get a second pick in the first round if you don't plan on using it in some type of way. And I think the best way to use it is to trade up and get your guy. I know a lot of people have said that Minnesota likes Drake more than they like Jaden, so if Jaden goes 2, this is a dream scenario for Kevin O'Connell and Macios and Fort. At number 4, again, a chalk pick, Marvin Harrison Jr. Although we are LSU fans and we love Malik Neighbors, when you look at 3-year production, who his dad is, I mean, the body type, the things he can do on the field, Marvin Harrison Jr., not only does he have a really high floor, he has a really high ceiling too. So he's bound to be a fantastic NFL prospect, and that's why he goes number 4 to the wide receiver needy Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and so with the 5th pick, the Chargers could definitely go wide receiver here with 2 of the top 3 guys on the board. But I really think that what's holding back Justin Herbert most is having a poor offensive line. Other than, I think they have one young guy,
Rashawn Slater at left tackle, but other than that, they don't have much. So I'm going Joe Alt here. Hasn't allowed a sack in his career at Notre Dame. All around great tackle, whether he's right or left. Also a legacy guy. That's what I meant to say. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think if you're the Chargers in this draft, you can't go wrong if you pick offense in the first round.
True. Very true. And Joe Alt fits Jim Harbaugh. I mean, Jim Harbaugh coming in from Michigan, they have tough, physical, gritty teams, and Joe Alt rarely represents that on the offensive line. New York Giants, pick 6.
Yeah, I have them going with, rather than best player available, they need to fill a need, and that need is quarterback, so I have them going J.J. McCarthy.
JJ is somebody who's garnered a lot of talk recently. Kind of started building up after the national championship game where people were like, is he a standout in any one particular thing? No, but he has accuracy. He has arm strength. He's built like an NFL quarterback. He's athletic. Like, he has tools that you can work with. So I think a lot of people in the NFL are kind of talking their way into J.J. McCarthy moving up and up and up the board. I mean, in reality, he started off as like a second-round guy, and now he's almost a top 10 guarantee from what we're hearing around the NFL. And the Giants overpaid Daniel Jones, and they've got Brian Daboll, who may want to make his stake as getting his guy and being able to mold him into what he wants the Giants to be. Number 7 pick, I'm going to go offensive tackle here after losing Taylor Lewan. Before this past season, we saw what losing him and Ben Jones did to that offensive line. They were one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And, I don't think you get much better signing older free agents and signing veterans. You have to make a splash in the draft and get these young guys who you can help mold your offense and do what you want. They have Will Levis under center. They're getting a new running back in the backfield with Tyjae Spears. Rookie last season, had a pretty good year. And then, you got Calvin Ridley and D-Hop on the outside. So what do you do on the inside to protect all those guys? And I go Fuaga out of Oregon State, Talise Fuaga. I think he has a lot of versatility. He can play left or right. He can even kick inside if that's what they want him to do. I think he's right up there with Joe Alt as the best tackle in the draft. So Tennessee, get him at 7 and lock down that offensive line spot. I think it's a good pick for them.
Yeah, Fuaga was one of the guys in the Senior Bowl that really showed out. Everybody knew that he could run block, and he proved at the Senior Bowl that he was an amazing pass blocker. And so that's why he's running up boards as fast as he is. And we even have him going as the second tackle. And before the Senior Bowl, he might have been a second rounder. With the 8th pick, I've got Atlanta, and it's one of the most obvious picks in my opinion. Dallas Turner. They love a skinnier edge rusher. And Dallas Turner has proven time and time again that he knows how to get to the quarterback, so it's a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yeah, Atlanta has a history of taking those leaner, more athletic outside linebacker defensive end types with guys like, they had Bud Dupree, they had Tack McKinley, Dante Fowler Jr., those guys all played for the Falcons and kind of fit the same mold. I think Dallas Turner is just a much more effective version of those guys. Who can get to the passer and can even stop the run, even at his size.
Yeah, up next I have the Bears' second first-round pick. And Clown Car, if you're watching,
Get excited.
It may be time.
It may be time.
Because I have the Bears taking Malik Neighbors to further improve that offense. They get Keenan Allen. They draft their supposed next franchise quarterback after getting rid of Justin Fields. Offense is looking pretty solid other than O-line.
Yeah, I mean, they draft Caleb Williams at 1, trade for Keenan Allen and get him for like a 4th-round pick or whatever it was. They already have DJ Moore, who had one of his best NFL seasons yet. Adding Malik Neighbors to an offense that already has all of those weapons, I mean, it would be a scary sight for anybody going up against the Bears on Sundays. For me, I have the Jets pick 10. They just added Mike Williams on the outside. They already have Garrett Wilson, but you're running out of time with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he might be the vice president soon, so who knows? I think you got to capitalize while the iron's hot. They made a couple veteran O-line moves in free agency. They have Elijah Vera Tucker coming back from injury, who they hope can maintain the level he was at before or even take a step up. So I think the one position on offense you're really looking at here is tight end, and you have a generational guy in Brock Bowers, or what projects to be a generational guy, with a lot of people comparing him to a George Kittle or even to a Rob Gronkowski. Not a lot of times do you see a tight end go in the first round, let alone in the top 10. Kyle Pitts was the last one. And I think we see it again this year with Brock Bowers. I mean, he's got everything you could want in a tight end. And I think adding him to that Jets offense with Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and Aaron Rodgers slinging it with coming back from that torn Achilles, Jets may be a team to look out for as well.
Yeah. And so now I've got the Patriots at 11. Now that Mustang has put me in this corner of having 2 Patriots first-round picks instead of the 3rd pick. So quarterback is a need, of course, for them, and also offensive line. But you kind of had Rome Odunze fall in your lap, and wide receiver is a big need, in my opinion. Hard to say that if a guy like Rome Odunze falls to 11 and the Patriots are there, that they won't take him.
Rome Odunze is one of those rare guys who's a 50-50 ball guy who also has speed that can beat you down the field. So getting him at 11 in a wide receiver class that's absolutely loaded is a good start for New England.
Yeah, I mean, if you're New England, you're another one of those teams who just really needs offense at this point. Can't win games if you can't score.
True.
We saw last year, Ramondre Stevenson, kind of a lackluster year, but they had Zeke step up from what he did last year with the Cowboys. But I don't think you can rely on those two. So building up that offense for the skill positions is huge in my opinion. Up next, I have Denver at 12, and I have been keeping up to date with the latest draft talk, the latest speculations, and word around town. Sean Payton really likes Bo Nix, and with all these quarterbacks going, I don't think they wait around to see what happens.
I mean, it's very likely that he likes Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a Drew Brees-esque player. I mean, he is a killer within 10 yards. I mean, perfect accuracy. Broke the record for accuracy, completion percentage in college football this past season, breaking the record of our main man, Joe Burrow, back there. But I'm not the biggest Bo Nix guy. I wouldn't take him in the first round. But, I mean, you could see a guy like Sean Payton falling in love with him. If he can surround him with good weapons, then Bo Nix is not a guy who's going to lose you games. That's for sure. I have pick number 13, Las Vegas Raiders. For me, this was an easy pick. They have a huge need in the secondary. They seem to always strike out on picking corners. But a guy who I think it's hard to strike out on, Terrion Arnold. I think he can do anything you want at the corner position. I think the thing that most people looked at that Terrion Arnold doesn't have, he doesn't have that 4.3 speed that you necessarily want out of a corner, but he can do literally anything else for you on the football field. He can cover in man. He can cover in zone. He's a smart player. He finds the ball in the air. I think Terrion Arnold's a really, really good prospect, so to get him at 13, first corner off the board, can't complain if you're in Vegas.
Yeah, so I've got dealt the Saints at 14. It's hard to pass on what I believe might be a generational pass rusher in Jared Verse. Also, we're kind of thin in the wide receiver room. Also had to pass on Brian Thomas. I just felt like it was a little too early. And a guy that blew me away at the Combine, probably the best tackle outside of Joe Alt and Fuaga, J.C. Latham, bona fide right tackle, perfect replacement if Ramczyk doesn't come back as quickly as we think. But also I think he can play left if he needs to. And with the departure of Andrus Peat, who started left tackle for us last year, it's a bigger need to get a tackle than it is to just add depth to the edge room and add depth to the wide receiver room.
Yeah, especially after adding Chase Young in free agency. And, we signed a couple smaller name guys in free agency in the wide receiver room, which could be a sign of, maybe us investing later in the rounds.
Yeah.
Or trusting who we have in the room. I think you made a really good point about J.C. Latham, a good player on either side as a tackle. Trevor Penning hasn't necessarily worked out yet, whether it's because he hasn't gotten the chance, he's been injured, hasn't played well, doesn't really matter. You got to add somebody in that room with the departure of Pete, and Latham's the good guy to do.
Yeah, I agree fully, especially with Ryan Ramczyk getting up there in age. Could be a nice replacement for him a little further down the line. If everything does work out with our recent prospects, I could definitely see Latham stepping up and filling in those shoes. But up next, we got the Colts, who last year spent a lot of time investing in a quarterback that couldn't stay healthy, and I think your main focus at that point should be to protect your quarterback. So I have them going Fashanu to kind of bolster that line a little more. We've seen them as of late not have a good O-line, period, and I think that this pick really helps them not only now but for the future as well.
Yeah, the Colts were a team who were known for having such a great offensive line, and then they've gotten older and haven't been able to replace the players yet. I know they have a couple really good players, and Quentin Nelson and Bernard Ryman, but you have 5 offensive linemen, not 2. So to bolster that line with Fashanu, who can play either left or right tackle, and even you can experiment with kicking him inside. I like that pick there. For me, it's a guy Rebo talked about with the Saints, Jared Verse, what he described as a possible generational prospect off the edge. I completely agree. Jared Verse reminds me of Kayvon Thibodeau from a few years ago with the Giants, except more experience and more proven. Kayvon Thibodeau came out as an athletic freak. Everybody was like, this guy, if he hits his potential, he is going to be an absolute game wrecker. And I think Verse can do that from day one. Going to the Seattle Seahawks, I think any team can use depth on the defensive line. Pairing him with an inside guy like Leonard Williams, who's known to stop the run but also create pressure on the inside, I think that's a great move for Seattle. So now you have that 2-headed monster on the D-line, and you can't double-team both of them. So Jared versus Seattle's my pick.
Yeah. At 17, the Jaguars had already addressed some offensive needs in free agency. So their biggest need, in my opinion, is corner. You kind of have your pick of the litter, being Terrion Arnold is the only one off the board. I went ahead and took my cornerback one in this draft, Kool-Aid McKinstry. You get a real shutdown guy. He had a bad statistical year this year just because he locked down his guy so bad that nobody would even throw his way. And so, yeah, I think he's got potential to be a shutdown corner in the NFL like he was at Alabama.
Yeah, I fully agree. To me, cornerback's one of those positions where you really can't look at stats. You have to watch him play. You have to see how he's able to deal with these receivers. And in my eyes, he's one of the best I may have ever seen coming out of college. Just the fact that quarterbacks typically aren't even looking to his side of the field speaks volumes to me.
Yeah.
But up next at 18, I have the Bengals. And to me, this is one of those teams that are pretty solid all around across the board. They obviously have some holes, but I think they're going to go with, like, who they've researched, who they've scouted.
Proven talent.
Yeah, some kind of proven talent. And to me, that's Liatu Latu. I think that he could really fill any hole on this defensive line that they may have, both for injury or health purposes, also filling gaps in that O-line, trying to get to that quarterback. I think he's one of those guys that can really bolster that D-line down and help some of these guys out that have already proven themselves but maybe not gotten to that upper echelon, really help the team D-line as a whole more than just any significant player.
Yeah, I mean, if the draft was off of film alone, he'd be the first edge rusher off the board. He's kind of fallen towards the middle to end of a lot of mock drafts in the first round because of some health concerns. He got medically retired at his last college, transferred to UCLA. They allowed him to play, but he did pass the physical at the combine, which if you pass the physical at the combine, you're good to go.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that neck injury, I think Latu would be a top 10, top 12 guy.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm going to take my highest rated player who has fallen this far, Quinyon Mitchell. I think he's a really darn good player. He just played at a small-time school, so the biggest question marks on him are, can he play against top-level talent coming from a place like Toledo? I think he has all the physical traits to do so. He's long, he's athletic, he's super fast. I think he's got everything you need in a cornerback, kind of just a faster version of Terrion Arnold in my mind. Doesn't have that complete lockdown and ball-hawking perspective that you see out of Terrion, but he's really, really good in zone coverage, and the Rams are a team who you love to use that with Sean McVay's defense. So I like Quinyon Mitchell going to L.A.
Yeah, I like the pick. The Rams in this draft are a big question mark to me because, you have Aaron Donald retire, and with a lot of D-line talent in this draft, I could honestly see them going either way, but I do think it'll be on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
With the next pick, 20, Steelers, they clearly addressed quarterback in free agency.
Double.
Double. But looking at their wide receiver room, they've got George Pickens and not much after him. And to think of either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields with a guy like Brian Thomas just makes way too much sense. He showed that he could fly at the combine. We know what he can do in a jump ball situation. We love Brian Thomas for a reason, is all I can say about that.
Oh, yeah, he's him.
He is a 4.3 runner who is 6'3", 6'4", wins 50-50 balls, and is a monster after the catch, too. So, not much to dislike about Brian Thomas Jr. If he wasn't in a draft class with Harrison and Neighbors and Odunze, he'd be a lot higher regarded, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And then, just pairing him with George Pickens, with Russell Wilson, if he can get back to, his former glory. This is a dangerous team that might make a sneaky run.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, of course, you have Mike Tomlin, who never loses.
True.
And good grief, the defense is good.
Oh, is it? Up next at 21, I have the Miami Dolphins. And to me, this was just kind of a best player available. I know they have a lot to address on the defense, so that's why I went ahead and took Byron Murphy. I think he fits the team name pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they lose Christian Wilkins to the Raiders in free agency. He went ahead, got a bag in Vegas. And to immediately fill that hole, you get Byron Murphy. I mean, it just makes sense.
Who, in my opinion, has the potential to be twice what Christian Wilkins is. He's a bona fide run stopper, but he's also lean enough to rush from the 3-tech. I personally love Byron Murphy.
Yeah, I think Wilkins is a much better pass rusher than we see out of Murphy right now. But Murphy has the tools and, learning from guys in Miami and, having the edge rushers that Miami does with guys like Jalen Phillips will kind of take that pressure off of him to allow him to work. So I like that pick too. For me, Philly.
Such an evil.
Obviously, they have the biggest need in their secondary. They went from one of the best defenses the year they made the Super Bowl to one of the worst passing defenses we've ever seen in the league last year, and a lot of that has to do with what did we see out of that secondary. And for me, I'm going best secondary player available, and also a very versatile one in Cooper DeJean. I think he can play corner, he can play nickel, and he can play safety. They have some safeties, and Reed Blankenship is back there. They have a young guy, Sidney Brown, who's also a very good player. Cornerbacks, James Bradbury's getting old. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson just left in free agency. Or no, just came back in free agency, excuse me. So maybe that nickel position isn't where he finds his home. But I think Cooper DeJean is too good of a player to miss out on this first round, and his biggest fit to me is Philly, so that's where I have him going.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean just being so versatile, can play any spot in the secondary, in my opinion. Just with his size, he can play strong safety, and he's plenty fast enough to keep up with a lot of NFL wide receivers. But moving on, 23, the Patriots, they have to address quarterback unless you're willing to roll out Jacoby Brissett, which I don't think you would. Is it Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah.
Okay, he looked at me like I was wrong.
We do that a lot.
Sorry, I'll look this
I am
way.
wrong often. But unless you want to roll out Jacoby Brissett, which I wouldn't feel comfortable doing with a brand new head coach. So you kind of painted yourself into a corner of having to address it now, because if you wait till the next round, you may not get the guy that you need. And so I'm going with Michael Penix from Washington, massive arm, and honestly, a guy that can have NFL talent. He's just needs to work on some accuracy problems.
I think you two definitely take home the trophy for hottest takes of the draft, with Bo Nix and Michael Penix both going in the first round. But that's why we do it as if we were the GM. We don't do it to be predictive, because are those guys going to go in the first round? We don't know. But if you see the fit and you see a team that needs them, go ahead and take them, especially with the quarterback. They always say, if you're going to take a quarterback, take him in round one, because you get that fifth-year option. And if he doesn't work out, people are willing to take the bet on a trade. So Michael Penix going to New England gets to learn from a guy like Jacoby Brissett. Not a bad fit at all.
Yeah. Moving on, I have the Cowboys, who remained silent throughout free agency. They lost some guys that they did not replace or attempt to replace. And so biggest need at the moment for them is tackle. So I have them taking Mims out of Georgia. Not really much to say, in my opinion. I think he's a good tackle. I think he'll play well for the Cowboys. And I think he fills a hole.
Yeah, Amarius Mims had potential at the end of last season to be one of the top guys in this year's draft class, and just an injury-riddled last year at Georgia has brought him towards the end of the first round. But the talent's there. It's just, can he stay healthy?
Yeah, healthy. So I'm coming up next with the Green Bay Packers. I had originally thought about making a trade here because we do have the trade function, but I thought
We're like that.
I thought it through, and I was like, you know what? It doesn't make sense for any of the teams below them to really move up, except for maybe Detroit to grab the top player on this board. But do you trade in your division? Probably not. So I had Green Bay sticking and picking. And for me, it makes sense to address the offensive line to protect not only a new running back in Josh Jacobs, but also your franchise quarterback in Jordan Love. He sat for a few years, and he looked like maybe he's not a top 5 quarterback in the league, but he looked like a darn solid one last season in only his first year as a starter. So what do? You give him weapons and you give him protection. And I think for me, that's Troy Fautanu. I think he has the potential to be one of the best tackles in this draft, as well as one of the best players in this draft. I really, really like him. I think he's a great run protector, and I think he's also very versatile. If you keep him on the right side of the line, I think he could play guard or tackle. Losing David Bakhtiari is huge for the Green Bay Packers. Plug in Fautanu. As a rookie, he might make some mistakes, but I think he has the ability to overcome those and be a really good player for the next decade for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Talk about a prove it or lose it year. Jordan Love.
And he proved it.
So many people doubted him.
He proved it.
I was one of them.
Pretty sure we all were.
Yes. Don't. Okay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, team we hate the most.
Speak for yourself.
Team I hate the most.
I hate the Falcons the most.
Yeah.
But anyway, they could definitely look to bolster their interior offensive line with Jackson Powers-Johnson. But looking at their depth chart, team need that screams the most is edge / 4-eye, and Chop Robinson's just that good of a talent that there's no way that he falls out of the first round, in my opinion. And why not see him here?
Yeah, I mean, Chop Robinson's kind of similar to Micah Parsons was a few years ago. I mean, just really athletic player on the defensive side of the ball who can play, anywhere you put him and he'll make a difference. So I like that pick, Chop Robinson. Don't like where he goes because he is in our division as Saints fans, but I think he's a really good player. Like you said, too good to fall out of round 1.
Yeah, definitely have some high hopes for him. I'm hoping he doesn't land on the Bucs because I really want to like him, and if he's there, I can't like him.
True, very true.
Man. Up next, another thing that's just really filling team need at the moment. To me, I have Newton, the D lineman out of Illinois, going to Arizona to fill another hole. Really, not much to say. I feel
Byron loves to fill holes. I'll tell you that.
Oh, I do.
Anyway,
Did
moving
he tear
on.
a pec or something? He did. He injured himself at the end of the season, and so he didn't participate at the combine. But he was supposed to participate at Illinois' pro day. But before all of that came up, he was supposed to be the number 1 D tackle off the board. So love that pick.
Yeah,
Sneaky pick.
And Arizona can use pretty much any position that they can get their hands on. So Newton's a good player to go round 1. For me, Buffalo Bills. They're one of those teams that they're not necessarily bad in any one spot, but they're not exceptional anywhere except for the quarterback position. So, they could pick anywhere and you'd be like, you know what, that makes sense. For me, I went with a position that you can never get too much of, and that's offensive lineman. I mean, building through the trenches is how we've seen really good teams win ball games. The 49ers kind of have proven that. The Chiefs have really worked on drafting offensive and defensive linemen early in drafts, and you know what they're doing right now with even lower level skill positions. So if the Bills want to finally jump over that hoop of not making it past the divisional round, I think Tyler Guyton's the guy to do that for them. I see y'all back there. Tyler Guyton's the guy to do that for you. Another guy, kind of like Fautanu, who I think is a really versatile player on the offensive line who can address any need, but Bills need a right tackle, and I think Guyton can step in and do that day 1.
Yeah, I think offensive and defensive line is one of those things. It's like the foundation. You really can't go wrong unless they turn out to be like a huge flop. Like if you take them first 10 picks and they don't play.
If you trade 2 first-round picks for a guy at 14 out of UTSA and then he gets half a sack, that is a categorical flop.
Yeah.
And that just happens to be Marcus Davenport. So continue, please. Pick for my Lions.
Yep, we've got your Lions at
My
29.
Lions.
Go off script. You won't.
Ooh.
He won't. He really won't.
No, it's their biggest team need, and you got one of the top 4 corners in this draft, in my opinion, just falling in your lap. Nate Wiggins, no-brainer. Would you like to elaborate on your Lions?
Yeah, they are my Lions. They could have made the Super Bowl this year had they not had a huge second-half fall-off. I mean, they were up 17 points at half, I think. They were making Brock Purdy look silly. And then the offense just kind of fell apart in the second half, had 2 fourth downs that they couldn't convert on. I don't want to reminisce on the past, but it still hurts. Anyway, Cam Sutton was getting absolutely torched by anybody who went up against him in the playoffs. He is now no longer a Lion because he was that bad. And Chauncey's gone too, so you have 2 big holes in the secondary that you need to fill. Although Nate Wiggins is strictly an outside guy, in my opinion.
Agreed.
He's got speed for days. I mean, I think he ran in the low 4.3s before he, pulled his hamstring, didn't run a second time. But I think Nate Wiggins is a great player. I don't know if he's necessarily my cornerback 1 or 2, but taking a corner in the first round when that's your biggest need, usually going to be a good idea. I mean, we've seen guys come out of Clemson like A.J. Terrell, who people thought were going to go a lot lower than he did, and then ends up being a top 10 corner in the league. Yeah. So can Nate Wiggins have that same trajectory? Hopefully so, if you are my Detroit Lions.
I think he is a first-round talent. Didn't expect him to fall this low, but, I mean, like you said, if you're the Lions and one of these top cornerbacks land in your lap, you got to pull the trigger. Moving on, at 30, I have the AFC runner-ups, the Baltimore Ravens, who made a splash this free agency, signing the King, Derrick Henry. Really, that was my big team need for them moving into this draft, was a running back that can stay healthy. I know he's getting up there in age, but he's Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Got at least 4 more years.
Well, those are words that you said.
True. He did say words.
He does.
But their next team need to me, I think, is just, continue to bolster that offense, give Lamar some more weapons. So I have them taking A.D. Mitchell from the U of T. I think that he's going to be an elite weapon for Lamar. At this point, they just need more people out there to... What?
Nothing.
He gave a simple little horns down.
I snuck one in.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, like I'm saying, I think if you can, then you should give Lamar more weapons, and I think he will fit this team pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to imagine them going wide receiver, 2 back-to-back drafts first round with Zay Flowers last year, but Zay Flowers ended up working out pretty well. He was a really good player, and I think he'll continue to grow. Adding A.D. Mitchell to a Baltimore Ravens team with Lamar Jackson, that's electrifying. So I can't be mad at the pick whatsoever. For me, this pick came down for the 49ers to 2 different people, and it's the top 2 people you can see on the board right here, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Graham Barton. I'm going to go Graham Barton here just because I think he's more versatile, played tackle at Duke, but they're projecting him to kick inside once he gets into the NFL. Last year with San Fran, we saw that, outside of Trent Williams, they don't have any big household names that really contribute at a high level. They don't have any necessarily Pro Bowl level guys, I think, on that offensive line, and they had to plug and play a couple rookies and even undrafted guys on that offensive line later in the season because they were running out of health. So I think Graham Barton can come in and compete for a starting job day one. That's why you take him in the first round for a guy who can play 4 positions on that offensive line and fill in when, he can either come in and start day one or fill in when somebody goes down.
Yeah, with the last pick of the first round, the Kansas City Chiefs, it was hard to think about, do they take wide receiver just because of all the frustrations that they were going through this past season, but in the offseason you went and go get Hollywood Brown. Does that push the needle enough to stay away from a Ladd McConkey or a Keon Coleman?
No.
I think it kind of does, but I do believe that if you're the Chiefs, you just won a Super Bowl, just take best available. And remainder of this class, I can't speak. Okay. Is Keon Coleman.
He's going off script.
He went off script.
I had to go off script. I had nothing to say about Darius Robinson.
That's awesome. Keon Coleman is a Kansas City Chief. So yeah, that's the draft we went with. You can take a look back at it here.
Yeah, feel free to screenshot and place bets on each one of these players going at that spot because it's gonna happen.
I would not do that. We only had one trade, and we know there's going to be at least 5.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily say this is a 100% accurate gonna happen type draft, but
probably not even a 20%.
But we put ourselves in that position. Look at the depth chart. Look at who they've drafted in the past. Look at what they might need this year to contribute, and that's kind of the position we put them in. So, you get a good little look at our top 10 there, and you heard some talks about who we think may show out higher than their position, who we think's a steal where they get picked, that kind of stuff. And we'll keep doing these every Monday until the draft. So I think we have 3 more. Maybe we'll mix it up here and there, and maybe we do different styles of mock drafts where we do a predictive mock draft, or
you said do.
I did say do. Maybe we do one with more trades. Maybe we do one with more people making the picks, celebrity picks. We'll see what we do for the remainder of this mock draft Monday. This was only 1.0, and we got 3 more coming your way. So make sure to keep tuning in to the Off the Dome Sports Podcast crew with Mock Draft Mondays. And make sure to tune in to the No Network with all the content going on over there. NFL, NBA, MLB, wrestling. Doesn't matter what you like. You have something at the No Network, so make sure to check them out. That being said, I am Redfish.
I'm Rebo Hustle.
And I'm Mustang.
And we will see you next time.